I mean, don't get me wrong, they make money, that's for sure. Well, maybe not Fantastic Four, but you get my point.
I might be live streaming right now. You should check out my Twitch and my other YouTube channel. Come say hi to see if I am. Also, my Patreon, where I have more content on there that you haven't seen if you haven't joined.
We too studied the time travel enigma. We have perfected a method using negative mass neutrino fields that allows us to travel backwards in time.
My name's Hubert.
Today I'm going to be reacting to more critical drinker. Why modern movies suck. They're completely forgettable.
You can't handle the truth. I'll be back. You're gonna need a bigger boat. May the force be with you. I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse. Go ahead, make my day. I love the smell of napalm in the morning. Yo, Adrian, I did it. Now, when I read out those quotes, I made a point of not imitating the accents or the intonations, and I gave you no visual clues whatsoever to help you out. They came from a wide range of different movies from different genres, different decades and styles, so there's no common thread to pick up on that might help you out. But does any of that matter? Nope, because I'll bet that pretty much every one of you could name not just the movie they came from, but also the actors who said them, and probably picture the exact scene in your heads. Let's try another one, shall we? Luke Skywalker, Captain Kirk, James Bond, Sarah Connor, Sherlock Holmes, Rocky Balboa, Bruce Wayne, Marty McFly, Indiana Jones, Forrest Gump, Hannibal Lecter. The moment I say those names, it instantly conjures up an image of that person in your mind, the actor that played them, the most iconic moments they took part in, and even the emotions that the character inspires. That right there, my friends, is the power of the cultural footprint. It's the ability of films to transcend the medium they started in and become a living, breathing part of our culture, referenced and quoted and thought about by generation after generation.
Oh, starting off like super strong. Was just thinking that movies don't really have anything very quotable anymore. Again, I could be living under a rock. I know that there's a lot of movies I haven't seen, even iconic ones, but there's always people talking about the iconic ones. A lot of those characters that he named, a lot of those quotes that he quoted, I have not seen those movies myself, but of course I've heard of Marty McFly. So yeah, thinking about it's not just really great quotable lines, really good writing, it's also the really good character writing. A lot of these characters are iconic, like James Bond. Haven't seen a James Bond movie myself, and I don't believe it's just because there's... How many movies are there of James Bond? Endless amounts. Don't think it's only because of that, because there's plenty of these characters that he also named. Don't think he said Ripley Scott, but that's one for me, that you just kind of know where they come from, even if you haven't seen the movies, haven't seen all of the movies, even if you only watched the movie a few times and it's been 10 plus years. You remember these characters, they stand out.
Here's the problem though. Not a single one of them was created in the past 20 years.
Fuck.
Yeah, that's kind of worrying, isn't it? And before you start accusing me of cherry-picking my examples just to prove a point, I can tell you that I looked up 6 different lists of the 100 best movie quotes of all time for this video, read every single one from start to finish, and not a single one belonged to a movie made after 2005. Look up any list of iconic movie characters and I can pretty much guarantee they'll all be from 2010 or earlier, and even if they do exist in newer movies like the Marvel or DC universes, the characters themselves will have been created decades earlier in books, comics or TV shows. What you're seeing today is just another iteration of something that was invented generations ago, just another meal made by someone else reheated in the cultural microwave.
Just reheated? That's a good way to describe it. Even if it came from a character that's iconic and it was said recently, yeah, but wasn't that character created by somebody else 20 plus years ago? I, for one, am not as much of a movie buff, so I know coming into these, I'm typically learning as much as I guess I'm sharing. Because there's lots of movies that I haven't seen, and I'm not a storyteller, writer, director, anything like that, so it probably sounds a bit condescending speaking on it. It says a lot that even if a movie is something that you haven't seen, but you yourself can quote something from it, it had a very big impact culturally on a whole generation of people, because other people are quoting it, now you're even quoting it, and you don't even know where it came from. So it's very popular for a reason. It had a very large impact especially again for those people who haven't even seen those movies but can quote them and know of the characters' names.
One of the saddest emails I ever read was from a young subscriber of mine complaining that their generation doesn't really have anything to call their own. No unique cultural touchstone they can point to and say, see that? That was ours. That was our Star Wars, our Lord of the Rings, our rock and roll. Everything they see and watch and listen to now is either a continuation of some old franchise or a remake of something that came out decades ago. And all of this got me thinking, wow, we're living in a bit of a cultural wasteland these days, aren't we? We're not really creating much of anything new or memorable anymore. We're just rehashing stuff that's already been done before, making copies of copies that gradually degenerate into mediocrity and failure. I mean, just take a look at the 3 big movies in theaters this month. Jurassic World, the 7th movie in the Jurassic Park franchise. Fantastic Four, the 3rd movie version of these characters in the past 20 years, based on a comic from 60 years ago. And Superman, the 3rd iteration in the past 20 years,
Only
not counting
third?
TV shows and video games, of course, based on a comic from 80 years ago. I mean, don't get me wrong, they make money, that's for sure. Well, maybe not Fantastic Four, but you get my point.
I feel like I'm kind of cutting him off and interrupting, but it's played for quite a bit. Oh, that's actually kind of sad to hear. Obviously, people have bigger problems, so don't take it too seriously. But yes, it is a little sad to think about. There's a whole generation of people that might kind of feel we don't really have anything that was our thing, like our staple. A lot of the things that we actually ended up growing up to were already kind of remakes, even if they were based off of comic books, but a lot of them being based off of movies that were already done themselves. So you don't even have what some people had. Few years ago, which is, oh yeah, sure, these are remakes of creations, a lot of comic books. I mean, the superhero era blew up. But again, at least they were remade or based off of comic books. You brought something that was on paper to life in a bigger form. You brought it to audiences that never read comic books. It made the whole popularity of superheroes and fandom like that huge. So that did still have a very clear, lasting impact, especially the earlier DC and Marvel movies. But when you've gone so far that a lot of things are just weaponized nostalgia, like redoing Star Wars or continuing stories that don't need to be continued, and it makes the entire storyline worse because it contradicts the earlier parts of the story that were iconic and other people grew up to, then it doesn't really feed anybody. It hurts the people who were always fans because you're kind of ruining the story and dragging it out and contradicting a lot of the things that they grew up to that they liked that were actually good written stories. And then it's also not really fair for a new audience because you're being very lazy and clearly you're just redoing a story for a money grab. You're doing it because you think that it already has a huge audience and a lot of people will watch it, but you're lazily putting it together like slop that's reheated for money because you don't want to write your own story and create your own characters. That's too much work.
Jurassic World's on track to make $1 billion, and Superman will probably do okay as well, although even that's looking a bit shaky right now. But box office revenue isn't the same as cultural impact, and that is the big difference here. This time next year, in fact, fuck it, probably this time next month, nobody's even gonna remember a single scene, character, or line of dialogue from Jurassic World Afterbirth. Shit man, I can barely even remember it now. Nobody's going to be quoting or referencing James Gunn's Superman by James Gunn by the time it leaves theaters. They're the movie equivalent of a fast food meal, something to be consumed quickly and then forgotten about just as quickly, so that if it wasn't for the heartburn and the explosive diarrhea later in the day, you probably wouldn't be sure if you'd even eaten it. The Avatar movies are probably the peak example of all this. Each of them makes more money than a small African country, and the next one will be no different, but nobody ever talks about them. Nobody posts fan theories or recites their most famous lines or references iconic characters in other works because, well, there's nothing to reference. They're nothing but hollow spectacle devoid of deeper meaning or substance, as pointless and empty as that hotel in North Korea with all the lights on the outside that's been sat unoccupied for 30 years.
Oh, he came for Avatar. Can completely see where he's coming from with the second movie. It seems very forgettable, very long, took forever for it to come out. And then what happened again? Not to say it was bad, everybody has a different experience. There's lots of cool things from that movie, probably. Or even if I rewatched it, probably have a lot of appreciation for it. But the first movie, slight disagreements. Even if it's not quotable, there were lots of memorable things in that movie. It was very impactful. It became a lot of people's favorite movie. And he's right. Just because something has a huge box office, that shouldn't necessarily be the only factor to determine, oh, clearly it was successful. More people than ever, for a certain reason, might be going to watch entertainment. That doesn't mean that they're eating it up or enjoying it as much as they used to. It might also just be because there's not as much out there for entertainment. Movies used to kind of compete with other movies that were coming out. Nowadays, it seems like a lot less movies are competing with each other because most of what's coming out is kind of redone movies or things that you haven't really seen promoted. So if something does really well, there's more people in the world today than there was 20 years ago, and more people might be watching movies simply because there's not as many options, which does sound negative, but it is a statistical fair thing to look at when something does pull in a lot of money.
Even Avengers Endgame, arguably the single biggest movie event of all time, is nothing more than a footnote in film history at this point. Nobody talks about it anymore, except maybe to reference it as the turning point where the MCU started its downward plunge into abject shittiness. I guess part of the problem there is that we've been wowed by visual spectacle so many times now that it creates a kind of numbness in the audience. You're never really going to replicate the sheer impact of that first Star Destroyer in A New Hope, or the T-Rex attack in Jurassic Park, or the rain-soaked neon cityscapes of Blade Runner, because we've seen it all before now. It might still be impressive, but it's rarely memorable. But films are more than just bright colours on screen. The most memorable characters and moments in film history are usually just regular old people in normal places delivering lines that actually mean something because of good writing without half the universe having to explode in the backgrounds. And we're just not getting them anymore. And it's not just films. It feels like every aspect of modern culture has been weirdly dulled and toned down and homogenized. I mean, come on, you must have noticed it yourself, even if it was only subconsciously. That weird feeling of inertia, of stagnation, like we're not really growing or advancing anymore, we're just sort of continuing. Like butter scraped over too much bread, you might say.
I'll try to make this one quick, but maybe it seems that something that once was an art form, people really cared about their writing and really cared about their character development and wanting to make a impacting story, wanted to shock you at the end, wanted to have something where you didn't see coming, wanted to have a character that you were rooting for tragically die, wanted to have a character that seemed like an underdog miraculously win against all odds. Believable though. Believable odds. They deserved it, they worked for it. Maybe a lot of that passion is kind of dead and has been snuffed out by a lot of people who are coming in and just want to make money.
Pick any decade of the 20th century, and I reckon most people could probably identify it based on the clothes, the technology, the music, or the films. Each one had its own unique identity, its own fads and fashions and zeitgeists, from the rock and roll of the 50s to the angst and counterculture of the 70s to the rise of the internet in the 90s. But at some point, probably around the late 2000s or the early 2010s, it all seemed to slow down and then, well, stop. There were no definable fashions anymore, technology became iterative instead of revolutionary, pop music became homogenized covers of songs from a decade earlier, and the era of the remake and the reboot kicked off in Hollywood big time. We stopped moving forward and we began looking backwards, and it feels like we've been stuck in that loop ever since. And quite simply, that is not good for any of us. So where's it all heading? Are we all just circling the drain of cultural oblivion, or are we on the brink of a new golden age of enlightenment and progress? Well, for my own sanity, and yours I suspect, I want to believe in the latter. I hope that what we're seeing now is the tail end of a cultural era that's been kept on life support way beyond its natural time by corporate greed, laziness, and risk aversion. A lot of the dusty old franchises that our parents' generation grew up on and we've been clinging to like comfort blankets for decades are reaching the end of their cultural relevance now, mostly because of horrendous mismanagement and creative retardation, but what the fuck? Ultimately, it was gonna happen anyway no matter what. Hollywood's own incompetence has just sped up the process. I think we're reaching that tipping point now, and maybe I was wrong at the beginning when I described the modern landscape as a cultural wasteland. Maybe it's more like a cultural dam that's been holding back the flood for too long. The cracks are starting to appear, and sooner or later, it's gonna burst. And if that's the case, it'll be interesting to see what's left after the floodwaters recedes. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.
Haven't seen Lord of the Rings since I was really little. Watched it over and over again when I was probably 7. So that's actually one that I really like that I kind of forget about sometimes because I think of older movies, ones that I haven't seen. Maybe James Bond. Is James Bond? Please don't judge me. Yes, of course it's older, but they have a lot more of them. And then there's that one with like the space thing. Back to the Future. I'm sure that one's quotable. Older. But anyways, just wanted to point that out. Like, oh wait, that movie. Yeah, good points. You look at almost anything, whether it's a little bit of music that you're listening to, or you're looking at people's fashion, or you just look at what was on TV at the time. It's kind of easy to decipher. Okay, that's around this time. But if we keep going like this, of course, it almost feels as if, hey, when was anything in the last almost 20 years gap really easily to pick apart? Now, you could look at the button on an iPhone and say, oh, okay, clearly that was taken away in 2000, whatever. But a lot of things haven't been very revolutionary lately. And then I think they tried to come out with like that folding screen phone, but that didn't really take. People still look at a flat screen, just normal screen phone. I mean, taking away the keyboard off of a phone was a big deal, but nothing's really changed since as far as screens go. VR is becoming more popular, but actually kind of slowly. Like, that's not in everyone's household, and that's not how the majority of people who game are playing games or people are taking tours. Like, nothing's really that popular. It's even kind of sad looking at the images of everyone just looking at their phone screen. Like, that's the new thing. Everyone looking at their screens. I criticize that as you're watching me on a screen, probably right now. Not to be dramatic, it sounds pretty dramatic, but after the Dark Ages, there was the Renaissance. So maybe you just kind of need a Dark Ages, a period of time where no one's really creating anything, because a lot of people who do have spark, who do want to be really good writers, somehow can't get in. They're snuffed out. No, that's too much money. No, your vision doesn't make sense. It's too weird. No, it's cliche because nobody likes strong, realistic male characters anymore. Maybe it just needs like that version of the Renaissance era, and things will come together soon. But yeah, tiny rant at the end of the video. You should go watch Critical Drinker if you haven't already. That's where I got the video from. Go like and subscribe. Also like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I appreciate you watching. I'll see you all next time.